A recent survey has found that the majority of employees who adopt flexible work arrangements, including remote work and telecommuting, do not believe they are less productive than if they were working a regular schedule.
최근 조사 결과 원격 근무와 재택 근무 등 유연 근무제를 활용한 근로자 대다수가 기존의 일반적 근무 형태 때보다 생산성이 떨어지지 않는다고 생각하는 것으로 나타났습니다. Tell us more, Juyeon.
Yes, so telecommuting and remote work. So that's not being at the office all the time.
Right.
They are either at a remote office elsewhere or they are working at home. So it's kind of like staggered shifts when a business intentionally schedules the staff to start and end their shifts at different times. I think that more and more businesses are introducing this kind of business shift. It's creating periods of overlap during their working hours. I've seen many of my friends experience these kind of shift differences with their employees as well as their colleagues. And a lot of the staff who work these shifts or staggered shifts tend to work the same number of hours, but they don't always work or start work at the same time with their colleagues.
Sure.
The survey found that 53.1% of those who are working such staggered shifts said that they were more productive than their regular workday. 40.8% said that it made no difference, and 6.1% said that it was not productive.
네. 이게 이제 한국노동연구원의 조사 결과입니다. 2022년도 한국 가구와 개인의 경제활동이라는 보고서의 발표가 있었고요. 거기 내용에 따르면은 이제 여러 가지 유연 근무제들이 있는데 그것을 활용해본 근로자들의 경우 일반적인 것에 비해서 생산성이 그렇게 떨어지지 않는다. 이런 답변이 많이 나왔다라는 거고요. 여러 가지 형태의 유연 근무제가 언급이 됩니다.
That's right.
지금 주연 쌤이 얘기한 staggered shifts 같은 경우는 그 아마 시차 출퇴근이라고 할 수 있을 것 같은데요.
That's right.
사실 이제 영어와 우리말이 그 정확하게 이거는 이거고 저거는 저거다라고 말하기 어려울 수도 있지만 그래도 이제 staggered shift라는 것 자체가 that means the employee has a different start and finish time or hours,
Yeah.
and they have different break times from
Yeah.
other people as well. 그러니까 출퇴근 시간과 이제 중간에 휴식 시간이 다른 일반 직원들과 다른 것을 staggered hours로 근무한다라고 아니면 staggered shifts 이렇게 얘기를 하고요. flexi time이라는 표현도
Oh,
있죠.
yes, that's right.
flexible한 유연하다. 근데 이것도 이제 어떻게 보면은 유연 근무제 뭐라고 볼 수도 있겠고 또 이거를 시차 출퇴근이라고 해석하는 회사들도 있어서 다 조금씩 다르기는 한데
That's true.
선택 근무제를 또 이렇게 표현하는 경우도 있습니다.
That's right.
그리고 원격 근무제하고 재택 근무제도 있는데요. 원격 근무제는 remote work라고 할 수도 있겠지만 사실 영어로 remote work는 또 재택 근무를 말하기도 해요.
That's right.
그래서 약간의
Yes.
겹치는 부분은 있다. 네, 재택 근무를 또 다른 말로는 이제 work from home 이렇게 말하죠.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many different types of staggered shifts or flexi times that people can work in, and this survey shows that the overall productivity did not go down.
That's right.
Let's have a look at the first term then. Flexible.
So if you're flexible, physically, if you're flexible, it means that you are very capable of bending very easily without hurting yourself. For example, if you do ballet, you can stretch your legs without hurting yourself. You can stretch your legs over your head, your ears, your whatever, without difficulty, which I cannot do.
flexible하다는 게 유연하다는 뜻이 있어서요. 우리 몸이 유연할 때도 이 표현을 쓸 수도 있겠지만.
Yes, but in this case, I think that it more means that you can easily modify your conditions, your time, to easily respond to the current conditions or circumstances.
That's right. And there are many different types of flexible working.
That's right.
유연 근무제의 여러 종류가 또 있죠. flexible하다, 융통성이 있다라는 뜻으로도 쓰기 때문에 be a bit more flexible. 사람한테 조언을 할 때도 쓸 수 있는 표현이고요. 자, 그 다음에는 이제 생산성이
That's
떨어지지
right.
않는다, 생산적이다라고 할 때 productive.
Productive, yes. If you're productive, you're creating or achieving a significant amount of products or results to whatever you're working on. So if you're being very productive at work, you are achieving and producing a lot of the results that you have to create at work.
네, 생산적이다를 productive라고 하고요. 생산성은 productivity라고 합니다. 그래서 이제 아무래도 코로나 시대가 지났으니까 앞으로 이 워라밸을 어떻게 조금 더 productive, 생산적으로 우리가 잘 맞춰갈 수 있을까를 생각할 때 이번 연구 결과를 참고할 수 있을 것이다. 이렇게 전문가들은 분석하고 있습니다.
That's right.
Here it is again. A recent survey has found that the majority of employees who adopt flexible work arrangements, including remote work and telecommuting, do not believe they are less productive than if they were working a regular schedule. Okay, let's move on to the second headline.
An earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 4.8 struck Tokyo, Kanagawa Prefecture, and other surrounding areas on Sunday. But there was no danger of a tsunami, according to the country's meteorological agency.
일본 도쿄 및 가나가와현을 포함한 주변 지역에서 어제 규모 4.8의 지진이 발생했습니다. 그러나 일본 기상청은 이 지진으로 인한 쓰나미 우려는 없다고 밝혔습니다. Tell us more, Julian.
Yes, so this was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake, so it was quite strong. But it wasn't, quite damaging to create any kind of tsunami. And as I mentioned, it was registered at 8:59 a.m.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, that's right. And it did not appear to have impacted any kind of regular train services within the metropolitan area. However, at least one Shinkansen, one of the trains traveling between the Shinagawa station, which is in the middle of Tokyo, and in the Kanagawa prefecture, did perform an emergency stop around 9 a.m. Because of the earthquake.
네. 어제입니다. 28일 오전 9시경에 이 규모 4.8의 지진이 발생을 했습니다. 그 진원지는 이제 도쿄 앞바다로 추정이 되고요. 근데 이제 진도로 보니까 진도 4로 기록이 됐대요. 원래 0부터 7까지 있죠? 4하면은 중간 정도 되는 것
That's
같은데 예, 보통 이제 진도 4다라고 하면은 대부분의 사람들이 놀라고 이제 천장에 있는 그 매달려 있는 등이 흔들릴 정도다.
That's right.
이렇게 본다라고 해요. 그렇지만 말씀해 주신 것처럼 The Meteorological Agency in Japan, 일본의 기상청에서는 이번 지진으로 인한 쓰나미 우려는 없다라고 얘기를 했습니다. All right, let's have a look at the first expression, which is a preliminary something.
Yes, preliminary. So it's a pre-something. It comes before something. It's an action or an event that comes before in preparation of something else. So before they make some kind of big announcement, you might make a preliminary statement.
Sure.
So in this case, it's a preliminary magnitude. So the initial magnitude that they sensed was a 4.8. Or it's an action or an event preceding or preparing for something fuller or more important. So thank God they haven't experienced a bigger quake just yet, but at the moment it's a preliminary magnitude.
That's right. And this is used in football as well.
Yes.
축구 경기에서도요. 본 경기 있기 전에 예선전을 치를 때 그 예선전을 preliminaries,
Yes.
줄여서 prelims라고 하는데 그런 것처럼 main thing이 있기 전에 나오는 사전에 무엇 아니면 예비 무엇이라는 뜻이 있어서요. 여기서는 이제 지진이 발생하자마자 최초로 이렇게 측정이 됐다라는 뜻입니다. 사실 이제 지진이 발생하면 좀 시간이 지나면서 다르게 측정이 되는 경우도 있고
That's right.
아니다 이건 이랬다 이러는 경우도 있는데요. 일단 지진이 발생하자마자 4.8이다라는 그 최초의 측정 값이 나온 것이죠. 진도 뭐뭐뭐라고 할 때는 영어로 magnitude라는 단어를 쓰고요. What about the term surrounding areas?
If you have any kind of surrounding areas, it means the nearby environment. Or vicinity is also a one-word equivalent that you can use. You can also use surroundings instead.
Okay.
And it means that it's also the circumstances, conditions, the environment that is around that area.
네. 주변 지역
That's right.
부근이라는 뜻으로 surrounding area를 씁니다. 그리고 이제 규모 4.8의 지진 할 때 규모에 해당되는 게 영어로 magnitude 4.8
That's right.
earthquake가 되겠고요. 아까 얘기한 그 진도 0에서 7까지 있다라고 했는데 그거는 seismic activity or how much the earth shook. 이렇게 좀 풀어서 설명할 수도 있을 것 같아요. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. An earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 4.8 struck Tokyo, Kanagawa Prefecture, and other surrounding areas on Sunday, but there was no danger of a tsunami, according to the country's meteorological agency.
Several key donor countries to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, including the US, Australia, Italy, and the UK, have halted their funding following accusations by Israel that several UNRWA staff were involved in Hamas's October 7th attack.
UN 팔레스타인 난민 구호 기구의 일부 직원이 지난해 10월에 있었던 하마스의 기습 공격에 연루됐다는 이스라엘의 비난이 나오자 미국, 호주, 이탈리아, 영국 등 해당 기구의 핵심 지원국들이 자금 지원을 중단했습니다. 자, 한번 얘기 들어볼까요? What's going on?
Yes, so the
RWA,
RWA head said in a statement that 9 countries have actually suspended the funding. And the U.S. have actually underlined that the UNRWA plays a critical role in providing this kind of assistance to Palestinians. And it's the United Nations Humanitarian Agency that serves them. The organization said that it has opened an investigation into these allegations to find out whether it's true or not.
And they're really shocked that these
Exactly.
countries would stop
Yes.
funding because of this
Allegation.
Yes, allegation.
Yes. Without having the confirmation of whether this is true or not. But of course, you can understand that these countries are also quite shocked to hear that the staff from the UNRWA was involved in the Hamas's October 7th attack. So the UN...
I believe the people have been let go, the people who were involved
That's true.
as well.
They
yeah.
have been let go, and they have promised a thorough investigation into these claims. They have not been specified either, and Israel has vowed to stop the agency's work in Gaza after the war.
네, 지금 계속 얘기하고 있는 UNRWA는요, 영어로 UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees고요. 우리말로는 UN 팔레스타인 난민 구호기구입니다. 자, 그러니까 UNRWA에서 몇몇 직원들이 이렇게 그 하마스의 공격에 연루가 됐었다라는 그 혐의가 나왔고 실제로 UNRWA 측에서는요. 이 직원들에 대해서 계약 해지를 하고 지금 조사를 투명하게 진행을 하고 있는데 이걸 가지고 갑자기 자금 조달을 안 하겠다라고 발표하는 서방 국가들에 대한 충격을 표했습니다. 그러면서 이거 지금 몇몇 직원의 그런 사건일 뿐인데 그렇게 해가지고 아예 지원을 안 한다고 자금 조달을 중단하겠다고라는 것은 좀 놀랍다라는 UNRWA의 입장이고요. 서방 국가들은 지금 미국, 영국, 독일, 스위스, 호주, 캐나다, 이탈리아, 네덜란드, 또 핀란드도 포함이 되어 있어요. 그래서 이 국가들에서는 이게 그런 테러 행위와 관련이 있으면 그러면 우리는 더 이상의 돈을 대줄 수가 없다는 그런 입장입니다.
Yes.
자, 지원국들 영어로는 donor countries라고 하죠.
That's right. So these are a pair that always go hand in hand. So donor countries or recipient countries.
Right.
So those are kind of like the two pairs that always go hand in hand. It means that it's a country that donates or funds money to other countries that are in need. So the other recipient countries that are the counterpart who require the funding or who require aid.
And we often say how Korea used to be a recipient country
Yes.
but is now a donor country.
That's true.
자, 지원국, 원조국을 donor country라고 합니다. 반대로 그런 자금을 받고 도움을 받는 나라들은 recipient country라고 하고요. 혐의라는 단어는 영어로
Accusation. So it's a charge or a claim that someone, or in this case, a country or an organization, that they have done something illegal or wrong. In this case, staff from an organization has done something very wrong. And this is actually in the process of accusing someone. It's not been confirmed,
Right.
but they are in the process of being accused.
네, accusation은 혐의라는 뜻으로 이렇게 썼고요. 그 다음에 이제 동사로 accuse 하다라고 하는데 혐의를 제기하다도 되지만 우리가 캐주얼 대화 속에서도 쓸 수 있어요. 그러니까 친구들끼리 약간 티격태격하면서 뭐야 내가 이걸 가져갔다고 생각해? Are you accusing me? 이렇게
right.
캐주얼하게도 많이 쓰입니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Several key donor countries to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, including the US, Australia, Italy, and the UK, have halted their funding following accusations by Israel that several UN RWA staff were involved in Hamas's October 7th attack. And here's our next headline.
A South Korean man in his 20s has been sentenced by a South African court with a fine of about 27 million won for illegally collecting scorpions while traveling in the country.
남아프리카 공화국 여행 중 전갈을 불법 채집한 20대 한국인 남성이 현지 법원으로부터 약 2,700만 원의 벌금형을 선고받았습니다. What happened?
Yes. So according to the Korean embassy, Mr. Kim was sent to trial on the charges of illegal possession of wild animals.
Right.
This is to a fine of approximately 27 million won or 2 years in prison. So he was detained during a search and inspection and was caught with about 10 scorpions. And then after that, he was imprisoned. And the embassy issued a safe travel information to the Korean tourists and residents, saying that we do ask that you be especially careful about collecting wild animals and plants without authorization. But this actually is common sense, especially with scorpions and wild animals such as these. But this was obviously ignored by Mr. Kim.
Absolutely. 자, 지난해 12월 말쯤이었습니다. 남아공 여행 중이었던 김모 씨라고 해요. 20대 남성이고요. 이 남성이 그 파를 마을이라고 하는 지역에 가서 전갈을 10마리 정도 이렇게 잡았다가 나중에 이제 귀국을 하려고 그러는데 검문 검색에서 적발이 됐답니다. 그래서 귀국하지 못했고요. 한 달 넘게 구치소에 수감된 채 이제 재판이 진행이 됐었고 그 결과로 이제 2,700만 원의 벌금을 내라라는 선고가 판결이 나온 거죠. 자, 그것에 대해서 the South Korean Embassy in South Africa 주 남아공 한국 대사관 측에서는요. 이 남아공에서는 특히 허가받지 않은 야생 동식물을 불법 채집하면 아주 엄격하게 처벌을 하니까 각별히 유의해달라라고 당부를 했습니다. 자, 표현 볼까요?
Yes.
This man has been sentenced to something or sentenced
Yes.
with a fine. What does be sentenced mean?
It means that you have been slapped officially with a punishment by the court or the government or I guess the legal authorities of that country.
Be sentenced는 선고받다, 판결받다는 뜻입니다. And he was illegally collecting scorpions.
Yes, illegal means that it is against the law. And if you're collecting something, you are bringing or gathering things, in this case, it's wildlife or wild animals, and you're taking away these things or you're fetching them and you are holding onto them illegally.
Yeah. 불법 채집하는 것을요. 여기서 illegally collecting이라고 표현을 했네요. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. A South Korean man in his 20s has been sentenced by a South African court with a fine of about 27 million won for illegally collecting scorpions while traveling in the country. Let's move on to the final headline.
Local governments in China have announced cash rewards and other incentives for matchmakers who successfully introduce women to unmarried men aged 30 and above and have them tie the knot.
중국 지방당국은 중매자가 30세 이상 총각에게 여성을 소개하고 두 사람이 결혼까지 성공할 경우 해당 중매자에게 현금 보상 및 기타 인센티브를 지급한다는 계획안을 발표했습니다. 그러니까 이제 중국 지방 정부에서 어떻게 해서든지 결혼을 하게끔 지금 사실 농촌 결혼 문제가 심각하다 보니까
That's right.
이제는 돈까지 주겠다. 이제 중매에 성공을 한다면 이런 얘기죠. Tell us more.
So I guess this is a stark difference or a contrast to the one-child policy that China had at a certain point. And now they want more couples to be wed. The rewards range from 600 to 1,000 yuan, which is around 113,000 won to 188,000 won. So not that high, but if you think about matchmakers matching multiple couples, then it could add up to quite a hefty sum. So the village council in the Shanxi province will actually give you 1,000 yuan to those who introduce an unmarried man to a woman that he eventually marries. The village is a small village to about 270 households and more than 40 unmarried men between the ages of 25 and 40. So a lot of these agricultural small villages with a lot of unmarried men are now giving out incentives to matchmakers. And according to China's 2020 census, the country has 722 million men and 690 million women. And the gender imbalance is most prominent among those born during the one-child policy.
자, 그러니까 이제 중국 지방에서 그러니까 많은 미혼 남성들이 지금 계속 결혼을 못 하고 있다 보니 이게 중매를 서서 결혼에 성공을 시키면은 한 11만 원에서 18만 원 정도에 해당되는 600위안에서 뭐 1000위안 정도의 그 현금 보상을 주겠다.
That's right.
하는 이제 지방 정부의 발표가 있었고요. 그런 여러 가지 대책들이 나오고 있는 것 같은데 물론 이제 그 큰 도시에서는 또 이런 문제가 없겠죠. 물론 거기서는 뭐 또 나름대로의 이유로 요즘은 젊은이들은 결혼을 안 하려고 하기는 합니다만 지금 보고 있는 이 뉴스는 특히 local governments
That's right.
되겠습니다. 지방 정부요. They are offering incentives.
Yes, an incentive is a thing that motivates someone or encourages them to do something.
그래요. Encourage someone to do something, 뭐뭐 하게끔 한다라는 뜻이 있는데 그 incentive가 여기서는 그런 장려 우대책이라고 볼 수 있을 것 같고요. 우리 또 외래어로 그냥 인센티브라고
That's right.
하죠. 네. 자, 그다음에 이제 결혼하다라는 뜻으로
Yes.
tie the knot.
Tie the knot means to get married. It's actually, or the performance of a marriage ceremony. Some people think that this phrase comes from the wedding tradition where the bride and the groom actually tie the knot
Really?
before.
Yeah, literally.
Literally tied the knot. But, you know, traditions changed, but now this has just become a phrase.
That's right. 결혼하다라는 뜻이고요. 이건 그냥 딱 굳어진 표현입니다. tie the knot. K-N-O-T, knot가 매듭이라는 뜻이 있어요. All right, here it is again. Local governments in China have announced cash rewards and other incentives for matchmakers who successfully introduce women to unmarried men aged 30 and above and have them tie the knot. 지금까지 뉴스캐스터 조주연과 함께한 헤드라인즈였습니다.
South Korean speed skater Kim Mi-sun has set a new national record in the women's 1,000 meters at the 5th International Skating Union World Cup, breaking the previous record set by Lee Sang-hwa a decade ago.
네, 국제빙상경기연맹 스피드스케이팅 월드컵 대회에서 우리나라 김미선 선수가 여자 1000m 부문 한국 신기록을 세우며 10년 전 이상화 선수의 종전 기록을 경신했습니다. Tell us more.
It's all been happening at the Utah Olympic Oval in Salt Lake City, and congratulations to Kim Mi-sun. She's done amazingly. She finished fifth in the second race of the women's 1,000 meters, and the new national record, the new Korean record, is 1 minute 13.42. So her time is actually 0.37 seconds better than her previous personal best, which she set back in the end of 2022. And it's better than Lee Sang-hwa, who set the record at the Canadian Pole Classic in September 2013.
That's right.
So it's really good news, and it's very promising for the next Winter Olympics, as we're always looking forward to new gold medalists.
이제 종전의 한국 기록은요. 이 부문에 있어서의 기록이 이상화 선수가 2013년 9월에 세웠던 1분 13초 66이었습니다. 그런데 이번에요. 10년 조금 넘었죠. 10년 4개월 정도 만에 1분 13초 42로 이제 약간 앞당겨가지고 이 기록을 깨게 된 아주 기쁜 소식이고요. 물론 아쉽게도 메달을 따지는 못했지만 even though Kim Mi-sun wasn't able to win a medal, 그래도 이제 국내 기록으로 봤을 때는 이 기록을 깨게 됐어요.
Well, it's just showing that Korea is improving and improving when it comes to speed skating. And, you know, this is one of, I think, the national passions when it comes to winter sports.
맞아요. 이게 이제 29일 날 미국 유타주에 있는 솔트레이크시티 유타 올림픽 오벌에서 이런 좋은 성적을 내게 됐고요. 거기에서는 이제 5위를 했어요.
네.
다른 이제 국제 선수들과의 경기에서는 그러나 국내에서는 정말 좋은 소식입니다. 자, 이렇게 기록을 세우다, 기록을 깨다 할 때 어떤 표현들을 쓰죠?
Yes, so here we're talking about setting a new national record. National meaning of Korea, meaning it's not a world record, but she's the best Korean speed skater of her type.
Sure.
So yeah, when we set a new record, we're the first person to do this, to be the fastest or the biggest or the longest or whatever it may be. The point is we've done something that no one's done before.
네, 기록을 새로 세울 때, 신기록을 세울 때 set a new record라고 합니다. 동사 set를 이렇게 기록을 세우다라고 하는데요. 공교롭게도 발음이 비슷하죠. 세우다, 세트하다. 자, 그 다음에 이제 기록을 깼을 때, 기록을 경신하다. 영어로는
It's basically the same
Yes,
thing here.
맞아요.
If you break a record, again, you are the fastest or the biggest or whatever it may be. Nobody's done it before. But the point is, somebody did it very well before you,
Yeah.
and now you're doing better.
That's right.
If you set a record, you may be the first person to do it. But if you break a record, somebody has already done it, but you've done it better, faster, slower, bigger, whatever it may be.
네, 원래 있었던 기록을 깼을 때, 경신했을 때는 break a record라고 합니다. 자, 그러면 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. South Korean speed skater Kim Mi-sun has set a new national record in the women's 1,000 meters at the 5th International Skating Union World Cup, breaking the previous record set by Lee Sang-hwa a decade ago. 자, 앞서 헤드라인에서 저희가 김민선 선수를 김미선 선수라고 잘못 발음한 것에 대해서 네, 사과
Yeah,
말씀드리겠습니다.
very sorry about that.
네.
We always do our best to get everybody's name right, and it's you know it's unfair on the person not to give them their proper name. So I'm very sorry to anybody who was offended by that. But yes, Kim Min-sun is a record breaker, and we're very proud of her.
She holds the current national record, and she is indeed a star speed skater. 김민선 선수 헤드라인 이렇게 살펴봤습니다.
Acclaimed South Korean novelist Han Kang's latest novel, I Do Not Bid Farewell, has made it into the 3 finalists for the top prize of France's Émile Guimet Prize for Asian Literature, according to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea.
한국문학번역원은 유명 소설가 한강의 최근 작품 작별하지 않는다가 프랑스 에밀 기메 아시아 문학상의 최종 후보작 3편에 포함됐다고 발표했습니다.
Yeah,
It's very good news.
I'm very angry about this.
Why?
Because the French have got the translation before we do. The English translation doesn't come out until later this year, and I really want to read it.
맞아요. 지금 이제 불어로는 번역이 나왔고 영어는 아직 나오진 않았는데 우리말로는 작별하지 않는다. 그래서 영어로도 그냥 그대로 I do not bid farewell이라고 지금 우리나라의 영문 기사에서 표현을 하고 있는데
Yeah, but the French
불어로는
title,
많이 달라요.
yeah, it's impossible adieu, like impossible goodbyes.
불가능한 작별 이렇게 불어로는 번역을 하고 있습니다.
Yeah, for those who don't know, this was first published in Korean in September 2021, and it's all about what happened on Jeju Island, the tragedy of the 1948 massacre.
April 3rd.
Yes, and it looks at this from a very personal point of view, or three personal points of view, three women and their experiences. So this was published in France in French in August last year. It's already made waves because it won the Prix Médicis for foreign literature, which is basically one of the 4 biggest prizes in France for fiction, for literature. We'll see whether it wins the Guimet Museum of Asian Art Award. It's also another big award. It's been going since 2017.
Yeah.
We won't know for a month because we don't get the results until February 29th. But I have a good feeling about this.
아, 그래요. 2021년에 나온 작별하지 않는다라는 한강 작가의 이 작품은 이미 다른 국제 그런 문학상을 받기도 했는데요. 이번에는 이제 에밀 기메이 아시아 문학상의 후보가 된 겁니다. 내용인즉슨 제주 4.3 사건을 3명의 여자의 시각으로 바라보면서 엮은 그런 장편 소설이 되겠고요. 결과는 2월 29일 그때 발표가 된다고 합니다. 많이 기대가 됩니다. 그리고 이뿐만 아니라 또 하나 더 있죠. There's another Korean work that's up for an award, and that would be 엄마들 by 마영신 작가.
I think we've seen over the past couple of years more and more translated Korean fiction up for awards. For example, Chung Bora, or Bora Chung as she's known in English for Cursed Bunny. Choju Tokki was on the shortlist for the International Booker Prize. It's Chung Myung-kwang's Whale as well has been up there. So it's great to see Korean fiction being acclaimed and being awarded.
네, 이제 앞서 얘기한 이 작별하지 않는다는 소설 부문에서 최종 후보로 올라가 있고요. 그다음에 엄마들이라는 마영신 작가의 작품은 이번에 새로 나온 분야인데요. 그래픽 노블 분야에서 지금 후보로 올라가 있습니다.
It's already been published in English. I read it about 4 or 5 years ago, I think.
I see.
And it's both funny but also tragic and heartbreaking. And I recommend Hangang, but I also recommend 엄마들 as well. They're both great books.
Yes. All right. Well, here's the headline. Oh, no, actually, let's look at the main expressions.
I think we should, Sue.
We're talking about an acclaimed writer.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing is that we can have an acclaimed writer and we can also have the acclaimed novel that she wrote. It can be used for a person or a piece of work or a thing. And what it basically means is they are famous and well respected. People are shouting out and saying, bravo, encore, fabulous, wonderful.
네, 유명하고 그다음에 존경받는 이라는 의미가 다 들어가 있어요. 그래서 유명 작가, acclaimed writer 이렇게 표현할 수 있고 소설가니까 acclaimed novelist라고 여기선 말합니다. 자, 그다음에는 make it into 어디?
Yeah, so in this case, when we talk about a competition, to make it into the top 5 or the top 3 or the top 10, it means you've beat other contestants, other people or other books to get there. However, I hope that Sue and I, every time we come into the studio, we make it in time, or we make it into the studio in time, mean we're able to do it. So it can mean to be able to do something, to survive something, but in this case, when we talk about competitions, it's about beating the others.
어디에 들어가게 되다 내지는 도착하게 되다라는 의미도 있을 수 있어요. 그렇지만 비유적으로 말하는 거는 어떤 최종 후보 리스트 안에 들어갔다 이 뜻이죠.
So we can also say that Kim Mi-sun, the speed skater, has made it into the record books with her new national record.
Yes, indeed. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Acclaimed South Korean novelist Han Gang's latest novel, I Do Not Bid Farewell, has made it into the 3 finalists for the top prize of France's Émile Guimet Prize for Asian Literature, according to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea.
Politicians in the US have called for new laws to criminalize the creation of deep fake images after explicit faked photos of Taylor Swift were viewed millions of times across online platforms, including X and Telegram.
팝 가수 테일러 스위프트를 성적 대상화한 가짜 이미지가 X와 텔레그램 등 온라인 플랫폼에서 수백만 회 조회되는 사건이 발생하자 미국 정치인들이 딥페이크 이미지 생성을 범죄로 규정하는 법 제정을 촉구했습니다. So before we had the deepfakes of President Biden, and now we're getting, of course, Taylor Swift.
Yes, and there's been outrage, I think not just among her fans, but just among the general public that this has been able to be allowed to be happen. In fact, X has said that it's actively removing the images and taking appropriate actions and monitoring the situation to make sure that any further violations are immediately addressed and that the content is removed. But the fact remains that one photo was viewed something like 47 million times before being taken down. And we've talked a lot about the benefits of AI, but this is a very worrying aspect, these deep fakes. A study that was done last year has found that there's been a 550% rise in the creation of these doctored images, these deep fake images, over the past 4 years. And at the moment, certainly in the US, there are no federal laws against the creation or the sharing of these kinds of images. And it seems like we're heading towards a point where politicians across the world and lawmakers are going to have to make a choice about how they deal with this kind of action and whether they do actually criminalize it.
Right. They say watermarking certain images or videos could help so that, people know for sure if it's fake or not.
Yes.
However, some experts say even watermarking cannot stop these hackers, would you call them? People who, use deepfake technology to spread false rumors.
Yes, because it's not necessarily going to be just a president or a singer. It could be you or I. It could be any one of us having our photos or our digital image manipulated.
네, 조작됐다라는 뜻으로요. manipulated도 쓸 수 있고 doctored도 쓸 수 있습니다.
네.
의사 할 때 그 doctor 있죠? 스펠링은 똑같지만 조작하다라는 뜻으로 photos and images can be doctored.
Yeah, so when we talk about, fake art or when we're talking about museums, when they look at a picture, has this been doctored? Is this actually a Picasso? But we're using it more and more in terms of digital documents and images.
네, 테일러 스위프트가 또 이번에는 이런 딥페이크의 피해자가 됐는데요. 지금 이 관련된 이제 그 딥페이크 이미지 생성하는 것을 그 범죄로 규정하는 법을 제정하자라는 목소리가 나오고 있습니다. 자, 범죄로 보는 것을 criminalize 한다라고 볼 수 있겠죠?
Yes. If we criminalize something, we change the law to make it illegal. So it wasn't necessarily legal before, but it wasn't illegal. It wasn't a criminal act. However, if you criminalize something, you say, if you do this, you will be fined or you'll be sentenced to jail time.
네, 범죄로 규정하다 또는 불법화하다. 영어로는 criminalize라고 하고요. 이 스펠링은 뒤에 s가 올 수도 있고 z가 올 수도 있습니다. 이거는 영국 영어와 미국 영어의 차이인데요. 다 가능하고요. 자, 그 다음에는 there have been explicit images of her. If something is explicit, what does that mean?
Yes, so there's a couple of terms here. One, in this case, we're talking about graphic images, images where you can see everything. But the term that we use explicit more often, I think in casual conversation is when something is very clear.
Yeah.
So, for example, our producer, every time before the show, if she needs us to do something, she will give us explicit instructions.
That's right.
She will say very clearly what she wants to happen or what she would like for us to do.
That's right. 자, explicit라는 게 아주 분명하다라는 의미가 있어요. 그래서 지시를 할 때 모호하게 하지 않고 분명하게 하는 것도 explicit하다라고 말할 수도 있겠고 이 헤드라인 같은 경우에는 사실 이제 테일러 스위프트의 이미지가 노골적으로 쓰였다라는 약간 다른 의미긴 합니다만, 예, 그런 이제 좀 다 드러낸다, 뭐 이게 명백하게 한다, 분명하게 한다 이런 뜻이 있는 거죠.
Yeah. So, for example, when I was a teenager, I was into buying CDs, loved music. And I would see sometimes on the CD it would say explicit lyrics, meaning there was bad language in it.
아, 그래요. 노골적인 언어가 사용됐습니다. 이런 뜻으로 explicit language has been used 이렇게 말할 수도 있습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Politicians in the US have called for new laws to criminalize the creation of deep fake images after explicit faked photos of Taylor Swift were viewed millions of times across online platforms, including X and Telegram. Let's move on to the next headline.
In a world first, a simple blood test has been developed that could help diagnose patients with the deadliest form of brain cancer, sparing them from undergoing invasive, highly risky surgery.
뇌종양 진단에 도움을 주는 간단한 혈액 검사법이 세계 최초로 개발됐습니다. 이를 통해 앞으로는 해당 질환자가 조직 검사 목적으로 위험한 외과 수술을 하지 않아도 될 것으로 보입니다. Tell us more.
Yeah, this is very, very good news.
Yes.
So this comes from the Brain Tumour Research Centre of Excellence, which is run by Imperial College London and Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust in the UK. And it's a simple blood test. It's got a sensitivity of 95% and a specificity of 100%. And what they're hoping is this test is going to lead to earlier diagnosis of brain cancer and also speed up treatment. The big issue is brain cancer is a killer. It's one of the deadliest cancers out there. And rather than having some very invasive and risky surgery, it's much better to take this simple trinitroglio blood test where they're able to isolate these tumor cells that have broken free from the brain tumor and are now floating around the body. So it's very, very good news. And hopefully it means that cases will be caught even earlier and hopefully more lives will be saved.
네, 혈액 검사를 blood test라고 하고요. 이 간단한 혈액 검사를 통해서 뇌종양을 진단할 수 있게 된다라는 얘기겠죠. 그러다 보니까 이제 기존에는 어떤 외과 수술을 해서 진단을 했다라면 이번에는 피 검사만으로도 진단을 할 수 있게 되는 그런 검사법이 개발됐다라고 합니다. diagnose 한다는 게 진단하다라는 뜻이 있는데요. Now, with this new technology, this new blood test, this could spare people from undergoing invasive surgery.
Yes. First of all, let's talk about the meaning it's not here. The meaning that many of our listeners may have heard, things like spare change, meaning you've got extra. Do you have a spare pen I can borrow?
Or a spare tire.
Yes. Here, though, this is different. If someone is spared from something or you spare someone from something, it means you save them from it.
That's right.
You stop them from having to do it or you let them not do it. So in this case, this new blood test means that these patients don't have to have that risky surgery. It spares them from the surgery.
자, 그래요. 앞서서 이제 여러 가지 예시를 든 여분의 뭐뭐뭐 스페어 타이어 할 때 그 스페어랑 이 스페어는 다른데요. 그래도 같이 알아두시면 좋겠죠. 여기서 말하는 스페어는 동사고요. spare someone from doing something.
네.
누군가로 하여금 무엇을 안 해도 되게 한다. 면하게 한다. 이런 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 여기서는 아까 얘기했던 이제 외과 수술 같은 것들을 안 해도 되게 하는 그런 혈액 검사법이 나왔다라고 하는데요. invasive surgery라는 표현을 보겠습니다.
Yes, you may be familiar with the term invade, which means you're going into somebody else's territory, like you have the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So invasive surgery means the surgeon is going inside the body, meaning cutting open the body and doing surgery within, in this case, the brain. So invasive surgery is always more dangerous than less invasive surgery. So, for example, let's say you were having somebody stitch a cut on your thumb. That would not be invasive surgery because we're not cutting open the thumb and going inside.
Right.
But invasive surgery means we're opening the body, we're going inside.
네, 이제 구체적으로 수술에 관해서 얘기를 할 때 시술도 되겠죠. 칼을 대느냐 안 대느냐
네.
그거에 따라서 이 표현을 쓰는 거예요. 자, 칼을 댔을 때는 invasive surgery라고 얘기를 하고 칼을 대지 않는 수술이면은 non-invasive surgery라고 얘기를 하는데 자, 이 경우에는 검사할 때 기존에는 어떤 외과적인 칼을 대는 그런 시술로 검사를 했다면 이제는 그냥 주사바늘로 하니까 non-invasive죠.
Yeah. Can I offer a third kind of surgery?
What's that?
Keyhole surgery.
What's that?
And keyhole surgery is when you make just a very small incision, a very small hole in the body, and you're able to put in, very tiny instruments that can then carry out the operation as needed.
So is that not considered invasive then?
It's a much less invasive process. I think it's still invasive surgery, but it's less invasive than going under the knife, as we say.
Interesting. All right, well, here's the headline again. In a world first, a simple blood test has been developed that could help diagnose patients with the deadliest form of brain cancer, sparing them from undergoing invasive, highly risky surgery. Now, here's the final headline.
The world's largest cruise ship, housing a maximum of 7,600 passengers, has set sail from Miami, Florida, on its maiden voyage. But there are concerns about the vessel's methane emissions.
최대 7,600명의 승객을 태울 수 있는 세계 최대 크루즈 선박이 미국 플로리다주 마이애미에서 첫 출항을 했습니다. 하지만 이를 두고 일각에서는 메탄가스 배출 가능성을 우려하고 있습니다.
It's astonishingly big. We're talking 5 times the size of the Titanic.
Wow.
365 meters almost in length. It weighs 250,800 tons. And it's its maiden voyage, going for a 7-day island hopping voyage in the Caribbean. So good luck to the passengers. I hope they have a good time. But environmentalists are concerned because they're using liquefied natural gas here, the LNG, and that leaks harmful methane into the air. And the bigger the ship, the more fuel, the more methane, the more damage to the environment. And in fact, when we compare carbon dioxide and methane, methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas. So Royal Caribbean, who own the ship, have said that the ship, the Icon of the Seas, is 24% more energy efficient than it is required to be, and it's planning to introduce a net zero ship by 2035.
메탄가스를 영어로 발음 2가지가 가능한데요. methane gas, methane gas.
Yes, what do you say?
I say methane.
Me too. I think maybe that's a more British pronunciation.
I guess so.
But yes, methane, methane, they're both acceptable.
그렇습니다. 자, 그래서 이 크루즈선이 엄청나게 큰데요. It has set sail, 출항했다.
Yes, means it started its voyage. I mean, if we're going to get pedantic, Sue, we shouldn't really use the term set sail for a cruise ship because there are no sails. However, we do use this term for any kind of sea vessel setting sail, meaning it's starting its voyage.
그래요. set sail이라는 표현 자체가 출항하다라는 뜻이에요. 자, 그다음에 이제 maiden voyage라는 단어가 나오는데
Yes.
이 표현은 이제 첫 출항이라는 뜻이 되겠죠.
Yeah, it's we use this a lot to say it's the first time a boat is setting sail.
Yeah,
The image
that's
I have in my head growing up was the Queen with a bottle of champagne, smashing it against the side of a new boat and saying, "I declare this the maiden voyage of the Icon of the Sea."
네, 그렇습니다. maiden이라는 단어가 또 어디서 많이 쓰이냐면 maiden name이라고 해서 여성이 결혼하기 전에 가지고 있던 성. 영어권 문화에서는요, 결혼하면은 여자가 자기 성을 보통은 이제 더 이상 쓰지 않고 남편의 성으로 이름을 바꿔버리죠. 그래서 예를 들자면은 제가 선생님이랑 결혼을 했으면 제 이름은 더 이상 수진 초이가 아니라 수진 마thews 가 되는 거예요.
No, don't think I like that. No.
예시. 그래가지고 그러면은 제 maiden name은 초이이지만 그다음에 지금 쓰고 있는 family name은 마thews,가 된다. 이렇게 설명을 한다는 거죠.
Yes, and we'll see the term maiden voyage. We'll see it used as maiden flight.
That's
for
right.
the first time for a rocket or a plane. This is a very
맞아요.
common expression to use for vessels when they're taking their first journey somewhere.
그렇습니다. 이제 첫 비행이라는 뜻으로 쓸 수도 있어요. 원래 그 전통적인 의미의 maiden은 요즘 쓰지 않고요. PC인 세상이니까. 그렇지만 여전히 maiden voyage, maiden name 이런 표현은 굉장히 많이 듣고 사용하기도 합니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. The world's largest cruise ship, housing a maximum 7,600 passengers, has set sail from Miami, Florida, on its maiden voyage. But there are concerns about the vessel's methane emissions. That's it for the headlines.
A report by the Korea Institute of Child Care and Education projects that about 30% of the nation's daycare centers and kindergartens will disappear by 2028 due to the nation's declining birth rate.
국내 저출산 현상이 계속되면서 2028년에는 전국 어린이집과 유치원의 약 30%가 사라질 것으로 전망된다는 육아정책연구소의 최근 보고서가 나왔습니다. Alright, the declining population.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
You know, we keep hearing about the declining population. It's been ongoing for some time,
Yeah.
you know, Korea being the country with the lowest birth rate. But I think we're getting some really concrete statistics that show what kind of situation our country really is in. So this report by the Korea Institute of Child Care and Education, it's saying that 30% of the nation's daycare centers and kindergartens will disappear in about 4 years if this trend continues. And I do think that this trend will continue because it's very difficult to get something that's been going for such a long time to change its course. So they're saying that the number of daycare centers across the nation plunged 21%, with the number of kindergartens also dropping about 5% from 2018 to 2022. And they're predicting an even steeper drop in the coming years, of course, due to the declining birth rate. So they say that the combined number of childcare centers and kindergartens dropped over 39,000 in 2022 to 26,000 will drop to 26,000 in 2028 and 39,000 in 2022. And they're saying that about 31% of these facilities will close down in 6 years. And they're saying that by city, it's of course this phenomenon is going on in the major cities of Korea, but Busan is projected to see a fall, the highest fall,
Oh, really?
Followed by Seoul and Daegu.
그래요. 현재보다 이제 4년 후인 2028년에 지금 이대로라면은 이제 전국 어린이집과 유치원들의 숫자가 많이 감소가 되는데 그 중에서도 특히 시도별로 보면은 부산이 가장 많이 줄어들 것으로 전망이 된답니다. 우리가 이렇게 전망을 하거나 예측을 할 때 predict를 쓸 수도 있겠지만
Yes.
여기서 나오는 단어 project를
Right.
쓰기도 하죠.
Right. So you need to make sure you're accenting it properly.
Yes.
So it's project, not project, which is a completely different word, but spelled the same. So when you project something, it's of course used as a verb. It means to estimate or to forecast something on the basis of present trends or data.
네, 우리가 이제 프로젝트라고 하는 그 단어가 영어로 이렇게 project 이렇게 쓰죠. 근데 발음을 어떻게 하느냐에 따라서 명사 project냐 아니면 동사 project 전망하다이냐 이렇게 달라집니다. 자, 그다음에 declining.
Right. So, you know, we always talk about the declining birth rate, the declining population, but it means for something to gradually become smaller, fewer, or less. Another word that you can use is decreasing.
Yes. 자, 줄어드는이라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. 다시 한번 제가 읽어볼게요. A report by the Korea Institute of Child Care and Education projects that about 30% of the nation's daycare centers and kindergartens will disappear by 2028 due to the nation's declining birth rate. Now on to the second headline.
A joint rescue team has successfully freed a dolphin calf's tail from entangled fishing nets first spotted in waters off Jeju Island last November.
네, 폐구물에 얽힌 채로 작년 11월에 제주 앞바다에서 처음 발견된 새끼 남방 큰 고래가 합동 구조팀의 노력으로 꼬리에서 그물을 일부 떼어냈습니다. 저희가 영상을 준비한 게 있어요. 한번 같이 보시면서 들으시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 사실 이걸 강제로 돌고래에게 다가가서 빼낼 수는 없는 상황이었기 때문에 이제 이렇게 시간이 좀 걸린 것이고요. 다행히 꼬리에 있는 그물이 마침내 풀렸습니다. 그렇다고 해서 그물이 완전히 없어진 건 아니고 아직도 입이랑 이런 쪽에는 그물이 일부 남아있다고는 하는데요. 그동안 아기 큰 남방 돌고래가 얼마나 사실 몸부림은 치면서 답답하고 그랬을까.
Poor
또
thing.
위험한 상황이었습니다.
Right.
네, 지금 보여드리는 게 요게 그 아까 미역처럼 생긴 거 있죠? 요게 그 그물망이에요. 네. So tell us more, Karen.
Right, so this dolphin, baby dolphin, has a name. His
Yes.
name is 종달.
종달이죠.
Right,
네.
right. So as we saw in the video, they couldn't just go and capture it and take it away, which might have been the faster way to go about things, but that's not how they decided to do it. They decided to make the calf feel comfortable by
Right.
just kind of continually approaching the
Yeah.
dolphin for about a week. And then they were able to remove about 2.5 meters of that net with the algae on it from its tail. And this was all done with advice from experts. They've been using this long stick with a knife at the end to cut away the net rather than, as we mentioned, trying to capture the animal. But they do say that about 30 centimeters of netting still remains on the dolphin's tail, and additional strings have been observed along its body. So they're going to continue this rescue operation to remove all of the netting from the baby dolphin.
네, 꼬리에 아직도 그물이 약간 남아있기도 하고 다른 이제 몸의 부위에도 조금 있어서 완벽하게 제거하기까지는 시간이 더 걸릴 수 있지만 어쨌든 이제 가장 큰 네트는 이제 풀렸습니다.
Yeah.
네. So, 종다리 has been freed.
That's right. So, when we hear free, we might think, oh, it means we're not paying money, but that's not what it's used for here. It means it's a verb and it means to disentangle or clear or release something from captivity, confinement, or even slavery.
네. free라는 동사가 이제 풀어주다, 빼내다, 자유로워지다라는 뜻이 있죠. 원래 그물망에 이렇게 얽혀 있었는데 the dolphin was entangled.
Right. So when you're entangled in something, it means to become twisted together or caught in something. But you can also use this, when we're talking about relationships as well, because when you're entangled in some sort of relationship problem, it means to involve someone in difficulties or complicated circumstances from which it is difficult to escape.
네. entangled는 얼기설기, 얽혔다라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. All right, well, here it is again. A joint rescue team has successfully freed a dolphin calf's tail from entangled fishing nets, first spotted in waters off Jeju Island last November.
French farmers have begun moving hundreds of tractors in an effort to blockade major highways into Paris in what has been dubbed the Siege of Paris to protest against falling incomes, environmental regulations, rising red tape, and competition from imports.
프랑스 농민들이 파리로 향하는 주요 고속도로를 막을 목적으로 트랙터 수백 대를 동원해 일명 파리 봉쇄에 나섰습니다. 이번 농민 시위는 수입 감소, 환경 규제, 과도한 행정 업무, 값싼 해외 농산물 유입 등으로 촉발됐습니다. Tell us more, Karen.
Right, so they're moving these tractors to block off the key routes into the French capital. But let me do mention, they say only the main roads have been blocked off.
Okay.
The secondary roads to the city do remain open. And they also added that other protests are taking across the country as well as in other countries as well, like Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. So it seems to be not just limited to France, but it's a problem that other countries are facing as well. So about the blockade, so French authorities say about 15,000 police have been mobilized to stop these tractors from entering the capital and other cities. And what they're asking for is, they're saying the farmers are saying we've been hit by falling incomes, these environmental regulations, a lot more red tape, and they're facing really stiff competition from imports. So what they're trying to do is to stop food deliveries from reaching supermarkets, but this is something that officials have warned them not to do. But police have also been given orders not to intervene. So far, they say there have been no signs of disorder.
Right.
So in response to this, the French government is saying that new measures will be announced very soon, in addition to those that were announced last week, which included dropping a planned hike on taxes on fuel and additional support for farmers whose animals fall ill. But I guess the farmers want a little bit more than that.
Right. Excuse me there. You did mention some of the reasons why the farmers are protesting.
Yeah.
And let's look at the first word, which is red tape.
Right, red tape. So, they're saying there's more red tape that's kind of blocking what they want to do. So, red tape, it's a word that, refers to the regulations or
Right.
these formal rules or standards, which are thought to be excessive, rigid, or redundant, or it could refer to bureaucracy claimed to hinder or prevent action or decision making. So we talk about this when we're talking about government, regulations. We have to go through a lot of red tape, or there's a lot of red tape. It means there's a lot of different processes that we have to get through in order to get something done.
That's right. red tape라는 거는요, 지나친 관료주의를 말합니다. bureaucracy. 그러니까 불필요한 이제 행정 양식이라든지 요식이라든지 이런 것들을 말하는데 원래는 17세기예요. 이런 그 문서를 레드 테이프로
They used to tie
묶었었대요.
it, yeah.
근데 레드 테이프가 너무 많은 거예요. 서류 작업이나 이런 것들이. 그런 데서 왔다고 합니다. So when you hear the term red tape, think too many official steps, too much bureaucracy.
Yeah.
자, 그래서 이제 blockade를 하려고 한다.
Right. So they're moving these tractors on the road so that cars or any other things cannot pass through. So when you're talking about a blockade, it means to seal off a place
Yep.
to prevent goods or people from either entering or leaving.
That's right. 봉쇄한다가 blockade입니다. Here's the headline again. French farmers have begun moving hundreds of tractors in an effort to blockade major highways into Paris, in what has been dubbed the Siege of Paris, to protest against falling incomes, environmental regulations, rising red tape, and competition from imports. Let's move on to the next headline.
Neuralink's founder Elon Musk has announced the neural technology startup has implanted its first brain chip in a human, adding the patient is recovering well.
뇌신경과학 스타트업 뉴럴링크의 설립자 일론 머스크는 자사의 칩을 처음으로 인간의 뇌에 이식했으며 현재 이 환자가 순조롭게 회복 중이라고 발표했습니다. All right, let's talk about this then.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
You think Elon Musk, he's a car maker, but he does a lot more than
There's
that.
a space project and many other projects.
Right. So Neuralink is this company that's trying to tap into putting, I guess, brain technology. So this first person received this implant from the brain chip startup, and they say is recovering well. So the company was given clearance by the US FDA back last year in September to actually carry out this first human trial of the implant on humans. And they said, or Elon Musk, I think he posted it up on his social media, he said that the initial results show promising neuron spike detection. And here, the spike, it means it's the activity by your neurons, which the National Institute of Health in the US describes as cells that use electrical and chemical signals to send information around the brain and to the body. So what they're trying to do with this, it's called telepathy, and it enables your brain, basically, if you think it, it will control your phone or your computer or any other device that you have just by thinking it. So they want to use this for people who might not have the use of their limbs, who can't use their hands or arms to access these phones or computers.
그래요. 그래서 이제 이게 성공을 한다면은 앞으로는 이런 브레인 칩을 이용해서 생각만으로도 전화기나 컴퓨터를 사용할 수 있게 할 수도 있겠다. 그렇게 해서 사실 몸이 굉장히 불편하신 분들에게 도움이 될 수 있는 기술이라는 건데요. 또 일각에서는 이거에 따른 여러 가지 도덕적인 문제와 그런 안전 문제도 언급을 합니다. 자, 첫 번째 표현 볼게요. To implant something.
Right, to implant. We talk about this when we talk about plastic surgery a lot.
And also your teeth.
Right,
as well.
right. So it means to insert or fix. It could be tissue, maybe an artificial object in a person's body, especially through surgery.
네, 임플란트라는 거 자체가 이제 동사로 쓰면은 심다가 되겠고요. 우리가 치아 얘기할 때도 임플란트 하죠. 이게 심는 거, 주입하는 거니까.
It's pushing it in, right?
그렇죠. 자, 그 다음에 recover.
Right, recover. It means to become completely well again after an illness or injury.
네, 회복한다가 recover가 되겠습니다. 자, 그럼 마지막 헤드라인 가볼게요. Oh, actually, let me reread the headline. 다시 한번 제가 읽어보겠습니다. Neuralink's founder Elon Musk has announced the neurotechnology startup has implanted its first brain chip in a human, adding the patient is recovering well. Now let's move on to the last headline.
A popular brand's tumblers, which took the world by storm after a video showing the cup surviving a car fire, are again in the spotlight, this time over fears they may contain lead.
차량 화재에도 끄떡없던 모습을 보여줘 세계적으로 화제가 됐던 영상 속 유명 브랜드의 텀블러가 이번에는 납 검출 논란으로 다시 한번 이목을 집중시켰습니다. Tell us more.
Well, they do contain lead.
Oh.
They do contain lead, but they made sure to, I think the company made sure to come out and talk about this issue because there were so many videos of it. People, they were breaking out these lead testing kits and trying it on these really popular cups that have just, the tumblers, they've just kind of blown up.
Yeah.
So they say that there is lead in it, but it's been sealed. It's in the base of these tumblers. And not just this company as well. In many tumblers, it does
Okay.
contain lead, but it's been sealed off so that it doesn't go anywhere near
It's not harmful then.
exactly a human
Okay.
body. So they did mention that, but experts do say that, as long as the cup stays intact, which we know it stayed intact in a car fire, right? So which we do know they're very sturdy, but in the case that it does, if it breaks or if something, goes wrong, there could be lead exposure risk.
납을 영어로 lead라고 해요. 스펠링이 L-E-A-D인데 lead라고 발음하지 않고 lead 이렇게 발음을 합니다. 그래서 이런 납이 있는 것은 맞지만 이 텀블러가 깨지지만 않으면은 사실 이게 아래쪽에 안쪽에 있기 때문에 전혀 인체에 해롭진 않다
Yeah.
이런 얘기를 했고요. 그 다음에 이 텀블러가 굉장히 견고하다라는 뜻으로 they are very sturdy 아까 표현을 해주셨는데 이런 단어도 알아두면 너무 좋죠.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the first expression. That's to take the world by storm.
Right. Take the world by storm. It means basically people were all over this. The viral video, as soon as it got out, everyone was watching it. So if something becomes a hot topic, if something it becomes viral, people are talking about it, you say that it's taken the world by storm.
That's right. 화제가 될 때 take the world by storm입니다. 마치 엄청난 폭풍을 몰고 오는 사람이나 물건이나 어떤 아이템에 대해서 그것이 지금 이만큼 화제가 되고 있다라고 할 때 take the world by storm이라고 할 수 있고요.
Yep.
소셜미디어에 진짜 여기저기 많이 나오더라고요.
Yeah.
네, 그리고 우리 굉장히 예리하신 청취자분이 수진쌤도 이 텀블러 쓰시던데. 맞습니다. 자, 그 다음에 in the spotlight.
Right. If something's in the spotlight, it means you're receiving a lot of public attention. But it could also you can also use this expression as something coming under the spotlight, which has a different meaning, and that means something is very thoroughly examined.
아하. To be in the spotlight는 이제 조명을 받는 거니까 그만큼 세상에 이목을 끌고 있다는 뜻이 되겠습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A popular brand's tumblers, which took the world by storm after a video showing the cup surviving a car fire, are again in the spotlight, this time over fears they may contain lead. That's it for our 5 headlines.
The International Monetary Fund has slightly upgraded its growth forecast for South Korea for this year in light of the recovery of the global economy.
국제통화기금 IMF가 세계 경기 회복세를 반영해 올해 우리나라 경제 성장률을 소폭 상향 조정했습니다. Tell us more, Ray.
Well, the IMF revised up its 2024 economic growth outlook for South Korea to 2.3%, and that's up from a previous 2.2%, which was announced in October. So
Right.
a slight increase. Now, this updated outlook for Korea is higher than projections by Korea's own Economy and Finance Ministry, which is forecasting 2.2. The Bank of Korea and the OECD are both projecting a 2.1% 1% expansion for the Korean economy.
아, 그래요. 올해 우리나라의 경제 성장률을 IMF에서 2.3%로 내다보고 있네요. 지난번에는 2.2%로 내다봤었는데 몇 달 전에. 그런데 소폭 상향 조정을 한 상황입니다.
Now, the IMF did not give specific reasons for this revision,
Okay.
but they did revise the outlook for both the US and China, which are Korea's key trading partners. So
Sure.
that's seen as the main reasons for this. That's what the finance ministry said. So the IMF updated its US outlook this year to 2.1%, quite a bigger increase than for Korea. They had previously forecasted 1.5% for the world's largest economy, and they've increased the outlook for China to 4.6%. Up from 4.2. They've also hiked their global economic forecast to 3.1%, an increase from 2.9.
So upward revisions across the board
Yep,
there.
across the board, right? The biggest being in the US.
Okay, let's have a look at Korea once again. It's been slightly upgraded.
Right, when
That's
you
our
say
first expression.
slightly just means a little bit, not very much. An upgrade means an increase. So there was a small increase.
네, 살짝, 조금, slightly upgraded. 업그레이드가 됐다라는 게 여기서는요, 이제 상향 조정했다라고 해석을 하면 되겠고요. What about in light of something?
It's a fancy way to say because of or due to something.
그렇죠. 이것으로 인해서 이것에 비추어라는 뜻인데요. In light of the recovery of the global economy. Well, let me read the headline again. The International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, has slightly upgraded its growth forecast for South Korea for this year in light of the recovery of the global economy. All right, let's move on to the second headline.
A recent survey shows that 4 out of every 10 people would rather skip the tradition of giving or receiving cash gifts or sebe money to mark the Lunar New Year.
네, 최근 설문조사에서 응답자 10명 중 4명은 설명절에 세뱃돈을 안 주고 안 받는 쪽을 택하고 싶다고 답했습니다. Interesting.
Yeah, don't tell your kids that. I don't think they'll be happy.
So tell us more about this survey.
So nearly 4,000 adults across Korea were surveyed last month, and the results are actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
42.8% said they will not be taking part in the money exchange. 세뱃돈, because they feel that it puts pressure on both sides. Last year's survey on the same topic, 29% of people said they would not be giving or receiving 세뱃돈. So a big increase there, actually. 42.5% said that 5만 won, or 50,000 won, is the right amount. And that was the same as last year. 43% of people thought that last year. So that number hasn't changed. The same amount of people think that 50,000 is the right number.
Right.
10% thought that 100,000 won was the right amount. And only 2% said it should be a bit more because of inflation.
Right. The 4 out of 10, or the 42% of people who replied that they would prefer not to give or take 세뱃돈 this year. We don't know actually if they will or will not, but that's what they chose because that's, I guess, they're saying it's pointless.
Yeah, they said they
don't
won't
want to
do
do
it.
it.
That's how it's worded, that they will not partake in this tradition.
자, 네, 그러니까 3,892명이니까요. 뭐 4,000명이 조금 안 되는 성인 남녀를 대상으로 지난달에 설문조사가 실시가 됐습니다. 거기서 이제 세뱃돈이 얼마가 적정하냐라는 질문이 이제 가장 큰 질문이었고요. 그 안에 보면은 이제 세뱃돈을 그냥 안 주고 안 받는 걸 난 선호한다라고 대답한 사람이 42%, 10명 중에 4명 정도였습니다. 근데 이게 1년 전과 비교하면은 10명 중 3명이 대답을 했었다가 지금 이제 4명으로 늘어난 거니까요. 더 많은 사람들이 점점 세뱃돈 주고받고 하는 거 안 했으면 좋겠다라는 응답이 나왔다는 거고요. 이거 분석을 한 이 업체 측의 분석글을 보니까 이제 요즘엔 아무래도 싱글족들도 더 많고 아이가 없는 딩크족도 더 많고 그러다 보니까 이 설 문화에 대한 인식도 많이 변하는 것 같다. 이렇게 나왔습니다. Let's have a look at the first expression, which is to skip the tradition.
Well, a tradition is something that's usually done. And it's usually done, usually a lot of times traditions are done on an annual basis. Like I think of Christmas, giving gifts on Christmas, for example. That's a tradition. Or in Western culture, in Canada and the US, it's a tradition. We eat turkey on Thanksgiving, for
Right.
example. Now, if you skip something, you don't go to it. You don't do it. So, when I was a kid, sometimes we would get in trouble for skipping school or skipping class. Or you skip anything. You just don't do it. Sometimes people skip breakfast. They skip a meal, for example.
네, 빠지는 거, 건너뛰는 것을 스킵한다라고 하죠. 그래서 이 전통 문화를 하지 않는 것을 skipping the tradition이라고 말할 수 있겠고요. 참고로 또 이제 적정 금액에 대해서는 가장 많은 42%가 5만 원이 가장 적절한 것 같다라고 대답을 했고요. 그 다음으로는 한 10% 정도가 10만 원, 또 2%는 10만 원 이상 이렇게 대답을 했답니다. 자, 두 번째 표현으로는 this marks something.
That means to celebrate something. And it's usually something that we do just to celebrate. For example, like giving gifts, right? On Christmas, we do that to mark the tradition, mark the holiday.
네. To mark something은 기념하다라는 뜻이 있습니다. Lunar New Year, 설날을 기념하기 위해서 이렇게 세뱃돈을 주고받는 문화가 있죠. 그런데 그것을 스킵하고 싶다라는 응답자가 많이 나왔다는 겁니다. Here it is again. A recent survey shows that 4 out of every 10 people would rather skip the tradition of giving or receiving cash gifts or 세배 money to mark the Lunar New Year.
The annual mortgage rates offered by banks across the country fell to the lowest level in 17 months in December, in line with a decline in 5-year bank bonds interest rates.
지난달 주택담보대출 평균 금리가 지표금리인 은행채 5년물의 금리 하락 여파로 17개월 만에 최저 수준으로 떨어졌습니다. Okay, so let's talk about the interest rates on mortgage loans and other interest rates as well.
So bank mortgages averaged 4.16% in December, and that's down 0.32 percentage points from a month earlier, from November. And that reaches a low level not seen since July 2022. So good news there for people who
Want to borrow money.
Yeah, want to borrow money for a house.
Yep.
Some other stats that came out. So the ratio of fixed rate loans out of overall bank mortgages, nearly 60%. And then that's up just over 3 percentage points from a month earlier.
Fixed rate loans.
Yeah, more people are going into fixed rate loans now. For their mortgages.
고정금리죠. 네, fixed rate 이렇게 표현을 하는군요.
And a little bit of other good news for household loans. People who have household loans, those rates offered by banks have also declined to 4.82% in December, and that's down 0.22 percentage points from November.
지금 얘기하는 건 이제 가계 대출이 되겠습니다. 가계 대출 금리요. Household loans, is that what we called it?
That's
Household
yeah,
loans.
worded,
Okay,
yes.
so all these terms, of course, they may not seem familiar unless you use them on a daily basis. But we are talking about the interest rates on these loans.
On different
which are-
loans, right.
Yeah, it
They're
looks
all-
like they're all going down.
They're all trending downwards,
They're
right?
trending down.
Which makes sense. That's
Yeah.
what's happening now.
So it's no surprise that the number of loans are actually increasing because the interest rates are going
That's
down.
right. Money is getting cheaper.
Yeah. Let's have a look at our first expression, in line with something.
In line with something means that something is similar or the same. So, in this case, rate changes. We talked about interest rates are lowering on bank bonds, so that's in line with mortgage rates falling.
Sure.
We can talk about people's opinions on something. Are my opinions in line with your opinions? Or your views, are they in line with maybe your company's views, public views on certain things? Expectations, we talk about that a lot if you read business news. So company analysts will give their estimates or their projections on stock prices. Then when we see what actually happens, or not just stock prices, company results, earnings, are they in line with what analysts expected?
그렇죠. In line with something이라는 것은요. 이게 줄을 같이 쓴다라는 단어가 들어가 있기 때문에 여러 가지로 해석이 되는데 하나는 잘 들어맞는다. 뭔가 이렇게 통한다. 이런 의미가 있을 수도 있고요. 아니면 무엇에 따라서라는 의미가 있을 수도 있어요. 여기서 말하는 거는 in line with a decline in the bank bond interest rates. 이것에 따라서라는 의미로 여기서는 나왔는데, but as you said, you can talk about,
Many different things.
me being in line with you. And that means we're going in the same direction, or maybe
It's more our views, our opinions on things.
Oh, okay.
Right? So I always think of it like, if you're in line with something, you're on the same level.
the level. Okay,
Yeah,
same
the
level.
level's the same. So,
Right,
and sometimes
right.
you'll, for example, government regulations, right? If government regulations change, then a lot of times companies need to adjust their policies
okay.
so they're in line with the new regulations. If they're off, they don't match, and then they come in line. Okay, now they match.
To match government policies or be in line with government policies, 정부 정책에 맞추다라는 의미도 있을 수가 있습니다. 자, 그 다음에 decline이라는 표현 볼까요?
Decline means down, trend, decrease.
명사하고요. decline은 하락이 되겠습니다.
Some people go to the gym and they do like decline bench press. They're on those benches that are slanted downwards.
Ooh, those are hard, aren't they?
Yeah.
그래요. 자, 헬스장에서도 이 decline bench press,
Yeah.
bench press, 이런 것을 할 수 있다고 합니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. The annual mortgage rates of banks across the country fell to the lowest level in 17 months in December, in line with a decline in 5-year bank bonds interest rates. Now let's move on to the next headline.
Protesters in Peru have blocked access to the ancient Inca citadel of Machu Picchu amid local anger over a new ticketing system, halting rail transport to one of South America's most popular heritage sites.
네, 페루에서 열차표 판매 방식 변경에 불만을 표한 주민들이 철로를 막고 시위를 벌이면서 남미에서 제일 인기 있는 유적지 중 하나인 고대 잉카 문명의 요새 마추픽추로 가는 길이 막혔습니다. 현재 이곳을 오가는 열차 운행은 중단된 상태입니다. Tell us more, Ray.
Well, train services to these ancient ruins that are high up in the Andes Mountains, they've been suspended since Saturday. This was due to safety concerns over demonstrators blocking the railway. Reuters reported that travel links were still not opened on Monday. As of last night, that was the most recent update I could find. So protesters, the protests began last week. They're saying hundreds of tourists from all over the world have been unable to reach Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
And this comes down to, so the travel unions are very angry, tour operators, even residents in the area, because they're saying this new electronic ticketing system, this new electronic ticket sale platform, it's going to hurt local businesses by privatizing sales,
Yeah.
and then profits will only go to one single firm. Some have also, agencies that are responsible for the care and preservation of the site, they've warned that this could result in overcrowding
Right.
because too many tickets will be sold. However, the government, they argue that this new platform, which became available in January, will actually strengthen the way visitor numbers are managed. From January this year, they've now increased the number of entries from last year. So per day, now 4,500 people can enter the site, which is up last year from 3,800. So they are going to allow more people. And what is interesting is last September, the government temporarily closed 3 areas of Machu Picchu due to deterioration, which they say was brought on by heavy visitor volumes.
Oh.
So this is not, the new policy
Doesn't
isn't
make sense,
quite in
yeah.
line with what we're reading about what happened last year. So I'm a little puzzled by this.
네, 지금 또 in line with를 써주셨는데요. 그러니까 이제 작년 같은 경우에는 너무 많은 관광객이 있어서 지금 이 자연 훼손 문제가 우려가 된다라는 정부의 발표가 있었다고 합니다. 그런데 올해는 이제 전자식 티켓팅 서비스를 시작을 하면서 정말 너무나 많은 관광객들이 몰리고 있는 현실이고 정부에서는 이런 티켓팅 서비스가 결국은 도움이 될 거다라고 얘기를 해서 뭔가 맞지 않는다. It's not in line with what the government said last year. 이런 얘기를 지금 해주셨어요, 레이 선생님이.
If you closed the site due to site deterioration because they've said, there was too many people, why would you increase it by 7,000 a day?
네, 그래요. 이 열차표 판매 방식이 그래서 이렇게 일렉트로닉으로 바뀌면서 정말 많은 사람들이 관광객들이 몰리고 있다고 합니다. 여기에 이제 불만을 표한 주민들이 철로를 막고 그러다 보니까 들어갈 수 없는 상황이 됐는데요. Even the South Korean embassy in Peru is warning residents there or South Korean travelers to either postpone their trips or just be aware of the situation. Don't try to go there because you can't.
Exactly.
Right now. Exactly. Yeah.
Good tip.
그렇습니다. 지금 현지에 있는 한국 대사관에서도요, 교민과 이제 한국 관광객들에게 지금 상황이 이러하니 접근 자제를 권고하고 있습니다. 자, 그러면 첫 번째 표현을 좀 볼까요? What's a citadel?
Ooh, a citadel. Citadel is a fortress. Usually they're on high ground. Like I went to one in Halifax, which is in the east coast of Canada.
Yeah.
You got to go up, you climb up to it, and you can look down. So, these were built a long time ago to protect cities and protect people from attack. Back then they didn't have, there wasn't airplanes and bombers, so if there was an attack on a city, you would try to get to higher ground, and then you could easily launch attacks on your enemies from there.
A citadel, C-I-T-A-D-E-L, 요새라는 뜻입니다. Fortress. 그리고 heritage sites는요?
That is a place, so it can be cultural, like a building, a site, like this type of thing, or I think of Cambodia, Angkor Wat, for example, comes to mind for me. But then they can also be natural places. Like Jeju-do is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, just the island itself.
Indeed.
And these things are considered to be important to a country's history, country or an area's history. When UNESCO World Heritage Sites, they're designated as having outstanding universal value, not
So
just
it's
for
not
a company, for
right,
the whole world.
Right. 자, 여기서 말하는 heritage site는 유적지인데요. 보통 우리가 UNESCO World Heritage Site 그러면은 세계 문화유산이라고 하죠. 자, 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. Protesters in Peru have blocked access to the ancient Inca citadel of Machu Picchu amid local anger over a new ticketing system, halting rail transport to one of South America's most popular heritage sites. Now let's move on to our final headline.
South America is facing abnormal weather conditions stemming from the El Nino phenomenon, with countries like Argentina registering scorching temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius.
남미 국가들이 엘니뇨 현상으로 인한 이상기후에 시달리고 있습니다. 아르헨티나의 경우 낮 최고 기온이 40도 넘게 치솟은 것으로 나타났습니다. Tell us more, Ray.
Well, currently 20 of Argentina's 23 provinces are under heat warnings or advisories.
Wow.
Buenos Aires is under the highest alert level. Neighboring Chile and Uruguay, they've also issued heat warnings. Brazil, which has been hit with heat waves since November, they're on fire right now. So the southern Brazilian state, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Minas Gerais, has a daytime high temperature. It reached nearly 45 degrees Celsius. So that's, I cannot imagine that. And as you can imagine, several wildfires have been raging across the continent in Colombia, in northern Argentina, and this is causing significant forest damage.
네. 브라질 남부에 있는 미나스 제라이스 주에서는요, 거의 45도에 가까운 기온이 기록이 됐고요. 그 다음에 아르헨티나 같은 경우에는 트렐류라고 하는 해안가에 위치한 트렐류에서는 43도를 기록했고, 또 많은 지금 남미 지역에서 wildfires, 산불이 발생을 하고요. 콜롬비아, 아르헨티나, 브라질, all these countries are suffering from heat waves.
I do not envy them.
The first expression is what's going on in South America. It's abnormal weather conditions.
If something is abnormal, it's just not normal. It's out of the ordinary. It's not what you would expect. Like you can call a person abnormal too. I don't think they would like it. It's not the nicest thing to say, but you could say it. Or you could talk about a person's abnormal behavior. They usually are one way, but now they're acting quite strange.
Right.
So that was some abnormal behavior. Is something wrong with this person?
Whereas the word extraordinary is also not ordinary, but it's a very good word.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We wouldn't call these extraordinary weather conditions.
No, indeed. Abnormal 그러면은 보통이 아니라는 뜻입니다. Weather conditions, 기후를 말하죠. 그래서 이상기후고요. Phenomenon,
So that's something that exists, and this is something that we can observe with our senses. So some things can be seen, felt, tasted, heard, smelt, these type of things. And usually with phenomenon, it's something that is unusual or interesting.
exactly. And the plural form of this word is phenomena, isn't
Right.
it? 예, 현상이라는 뜻입니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. South America is facing abnormal weather conditions stemming from the El Niño phenomenon, with countries like Argentina registering scorching temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius.